Now we're going to be getting into a story that Andrew and I discussed yesterday in his news update, because I want to know if you preferred to get around by foot or bike. Turns out there's good news for Dubai residents who would rather not have to deal with the road traffic and stressors that come along with it. The Roads and Transport Authority has approved a new 5-year soft mobility master plan, which aims to make it easier and safer for people to walk, cycle, use e-scooters to get around neighborhoods as well. By 2030, the plan should cover 25 residential areas and connect 63 public transportation stations. That's all with new pathways designed to help more people basically leave their car behind for those shorter journeys. This does follow last month's announcement that Dubai will construct 31 new pedestrian bridges and tunnels across some of the key roads by 2030. The RTA had said pedestrian fatalities in the Emirate have fallen by 98% over the last 18 years. We've also seen an increase in pedestrian trips from 307 million in 2023 to 326 million in 2025. Cycling trips also up by 23%. That's from 2024 to 2025, ultimately reaching 57 million. So some positive statistics that we're seeing there. But let's make sense now of this soft mobility master plan. Joining us now is Manuel Moraga, who is urban planner and a director at Godwin Austin Johnson. Manuel, thank you so much for joining us in studio today.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and good day to all the listeners.
Now, I understand Melanie has warned me, has told me that you're Spanish. So are you still riding high from the glory of the World Cup? Congratulations.
Thank you. We have a very long 24 hours of celebrations.
Well, it's impressive that you've managed to make it in here after all of that as well. Now, Manuel, I want to start with something Brandy had asked me, which is something I thought the moment I heard this news. I had never heard the term soft mobility before. So when urban planners talk about soft mobility, what exactly does that encompass?
It's very easy. Normally, the cities work as a connection in between the residential areas and the activity areas. What happens? Small or all cities, they move very easy by pedestrian, soft, easy, right, because they are all connected very well and historically from long ago. The new cities like Dubai or Abu Dhabi and all the Middle East, they are extensive cities. They are not soft. They are hardscape with roads, soft paved area, even desert areas, and it requires that the people use the vehicles, the motor engines. And this is the big difference between the soft connection on the cities and the hardware that is the vehicles.
And the age of the city, as you've referenced, does play an important role in this, because Spain does this really well, right? Madrid, Barcelona, they're very walkable cities. What are some of the best aspects of urban planning that you have seen in your home country? And of course, as you said, part of that is age. You know, we see a lot of these walkable cities are older.
There are many. Even I am from the south of Spain, from Sevilla, which has a very similar temperature of Dubai during 3 months of the year. We regularly, July, August, mid-September, we achieve every day the 45 degrees, which is telling you, okay, is the main problem that we have here with the temperature, that the people trying to walk or to go to the supermarket, they go by car because it's too hot? Not necessary, because if the cities are planned properly, you don't need to take the vehicle to go in a normal route that is 15, 10, 20 minutes, and you can do the normal groceries or go to the doctor or go to the bank, and you avoid to use the vehicle. But you need to plan the cities accordingly. We at GASH, in the urban planning that we are doing normally, and we have done several projects in Middle East, we are trying to enhance this kind of principles. We saw very recent example about how it can work, and very good, with the Expo 2020. All these covered streets, plazas, connected, you were going walking. And you were walking normally between 15, 20 minutes, and there is no problem. If you exceed that time, is when it's starting to be hard to be walkable.
Yeah, it's interesting to think of the threshold of how long we're able to take with that extra support of shading. I mean, you referenced Expo there as an example. You mentioned how your home city of Sevilla, even though it has similar temperatures, that people are still able to walk around. I don't live that far from work. I live about 20 minutes away. I love walking. I do. But in these temperatures, if I were to show up to work, I would be drenched. I mean, I would just not be in a state that's appropriate to walk into the office. So that is a factor for people here. What can be done about the heat? I mean, the shading is one solution, but what are some more creative options that we're seeing?
Obviously, a very well-connected public transportation network is critical. It's true that Dubai started as a very linear city around Seysayeh Road, but in the last 15 years has been growing a lot into the desert. What happened? The infrastructure has been growing, but not at the same speed of the development. And this has made many people, even if we're 10 minutes by car, they needed to use the car because they were not properly connected and were cut by highways which are quite difficult to cross. What happened is, if you start modifying the network as RTA is starting to planify with new lines of metro, additional lines of bus, this will allow the interconnection of the districts. And what is required as from the metro station or the bus station, the people can walk to their destinations in a comfort way. There is one of the things that we have tested so many times in Europe, especially in Spain, that shading areas, shading streets, especially with landscape, with trees, reduce the street temperature by 3 to 4 degrees. This is a big asset and is making more comfortable to walk and to move within the city.
Now, there are so many different factors. There's the human psychology of convenience and just, being used to cars, of course. How much in all of that, when you have the correct infrastructure, when you have the most efficient infrastructure to enable this, how much does that make a difference in actually having user behavior change and having more pedestrians, having more cyclists?
The young generation is starting to have more prediction to go into the exercise, into moving and not into the vehicle, even for the health. The old ones are the ones we start, okay, it's more easy to go by car. No, but all this young generation and thinking about even sustainability is much better to do it walking, especially in a small distance. I still remember 20 years ago in Spain when some of the hardscape roads, streets, were converted into pedestrian streets. At the beginning was a very strong react and refuse of the people to accept that. After a few years, the people realize that works much better. They started to make a more easy way, a more easy style of life. Less noise, less pollution, more comfortable. You have more connection even with the people around. Because if you are in your vehicle, in your car, you don't speak with anyone. If you are walking, if you continue to see every day the people around, you start to make a connection with them, which will enhance the sense of community.
Now, Manuel, the RTA wants to connect 63 public transportation stations with walking and cycling infrastructure. This sounds great, but what does the research say on how easy it needs to be to get to a station in order to make somebody a public transportation user? What sort of difference can this really make in getting people to use these systems?
We have two problems, or there are currently two problems. First is that the current metro network is still not developed enough to absorb the amount of people. It's brilliant, it's working perfectly, but it's not sufficient for the amount of people that is using. The second problem that is coming is that Dubai, as I mentioned before, has been growing a lot into the desert, and all these communities, they are quite far from any metro station. And in order to make them use the metro, they need to achieve the location of a metro station, let the car, and then take the public transportation. That means in the new plan from RTA, with the extension of the blue line and even the gold line, obviously they will make more near these communities into the metro network. But still need to keep developing because there are many empty areas that you cannot achieve them within the metro or the bus.
You know, another topic that we wanted to discuss is that we're really seeing a lot of e-scooters, micromobility. There's even these little, in my compound, you've got like young kids and teenagers driving around these motorized bikes. They almost look like little motorcycles, in fact. So you're seeing lots of these kinds of devices. It's quite difficult to balance encouraging these forms of transport to get people around, but also keeping everybody safe. Because right now, as Brandy pointed out earlier, you're seeing e-scooters used as vehicles on the roads. Yeah. You're seeing them on pedestrian crosswalks. You know, you have to dodge them sometimes if you're walking from one place to another. So what is a good solution here from an urban planning perspective, especially when you have these roads and pedestrian crosswalks already built? How can you integrate these e-scooters into the equation?
It requires a small transformation of the current hardscape and the streets that are currently built. For the new master plan developer, it's more easy to consider, a bicycle track or an area just for the scooters, but for the all pedestrian streets or the roads, it's quite difficult. What you cannot do is to keep these vehicles, because at the end of the day they are vehicles, go moving free within the pedestrian area, but they cannot move free within the roads because they are not roads. The first that need to be a campaign of learning for all these users how they need to act. The same if you are going to drive a car, you need to have a driving license. Mm-hmm. You cannot start taking directly the vehicle, the tricycle or the scooter, and start moving in between the people. Doesn't work like this. And the second, you need to think that as a user, is a good solution to solve the distance in between the different metro stations or location that you need to go, but the streets need to be prepared for that. And this preparation requires investment and a very clear planification without to interfere with the other services. If some of the streets require to be pedestrianized, they need to be. Many different cities has done this kind of changes and critical areas, and they are working perfectly now. And you have totally signalized and delimited what is the area which is for the scooters, for the bicycles, and what is for the pedestrian.
And as you mentioned, when some of these cities make these changes, at first, there can be a bit of resistance from the public.
There is a clear rejection from the people. We know it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that mindset, the mentality, because Dubai has often been viewed as a car-dependent city. People are used to the convenience. I swear, Manuel, sometimes when I tell my friends, let's just walk that, 5-10 minutes to that building over there, the looks that I get sometimes, like I'm crazy to suggest walking in Dubai. It's such a mindset that you get. So how do you see that aspect changing? Because that's an important piece as well.
It's starting to change. And we saw some different, especially retail districts, that has been enhancing the pedestrianization of the people, like we saw on the beach in GBR, or we saw even in the city walk. And even the more traditional area, like is Al Sif or different location in Bur Dubai and Deira, reducing the amount of vehicles into that zones will allow that the pedestrians go further and move more easily in between the different locations, and will help understanding how the city will change.
Now, I'm going to ask you, Manuel, we just have one last question that we have time for with you. So I'm going to ask you to look into a crystal ball a little bit. I know this is always a little bit challenging, but 10 to 20 years from now, you've been working in the UAE for quite a long time. What can you envision all these changes that you're seeing are going to make in terms of the livability of the city, what the city looks like for residents? For example, are we going to be seeing more neighborhood living, even more so than we already see today? What are you seeing as sort of a 10, 15, 20 years down from now?
Trying to be a little bit as prophet and to think about the future, I can see that Dubai is moving in the right direction. It's really connecting the different areas, the new development, maybe not at the speed that we are thinking, because the development and the different residential areas are growing faster than expected initially. But the future is that the city will be more pedestrian connected. The district will be more isolated on themselves, but self-sufficient. And they will not require to have long distance in between the different zones of Dubai.
Manuel, thank you so much for walking us through this as we've heard the announcements for this soft mobility plan, understanding what a difference that can make and why this is so important. It's been really helpful to have you in.
It's been a pleasure.
That's the voice there of Manuel Moraga, who is an urban planner and director at Godwin Austin Johnson.